Africa Business News, proudly sponsored by EY.
Coming up on Africa Business News, Kenya Airways in trouble, clover lists in Namibia, and Tullow Oil in territorial dispute. Stay tuned.
Africa, it is huge, it is diverse, and its business landscape fascinating and dynamic. And that's our business here on your favorite weekly African business stop. In Nairobi, we have Bonnie Tunya, who brings us the latest from East Africa. Christy Cole Popola in Lagos gives us news from West Africa. And with me in Johannesburg is Christine Mundwa. My name is Victor Moshoeu, and this is the Africa Business News. Bonnie, lots of exciting headlines coming from your part of the world. House prices rising 2.5% in the first quarter of this year, and better prices expected for Kenyan coffee. That is all great. However, I'm worried for Kenya Airways, for an airline with this impressive African footprint. By the way, this is the reigning African cargo airline of the year. Why does it always lag Ethiopian Airlines? It made a loss last year. Is that the reason KQ is looking to sell some of its aircraft?
Well, Victor, the story of Kenya Airways has been a sad one in the recent past before the airline's management could fully settle after naming a new chief executive. Kenya Airways was in the news struggling with a huge debt burden, Victor, of amounting to just about 77.8 billion Kenyan shillings as at September last year. And Victor, this amount comprises short-term loans, cash owed to suppliers, and prepayments due to advance of carriage. Now, the airline made a loss of 12.5 billion shillings in the 6 months to September 2014 and the first half of the current financial year. Now, the Kenya Airways CEO Mbuvi Ngunze has last week said that the airline will sell 5 older planes and some of the land in a negotiating and bridging a loan to help it through a cash crunch caused by a drop in the passenger numbers that we've recently experienced. What is also sad is to know that the carrier, which is partly owned by Air France KLM, has been struggling to finance flying as it continues to hemorrhage financially. There was controversy when the airline decided to wet lease for its short-haul flights, with labor unions condemning the move as threatening jobs in that place. But all the while, its top management has maintained that the ambitious and cash-intensive project Mawingu was on course. And so the airline is currently trying to restructure its debt, with all eyes now at the government of Kenya for a possible bailout.
The odds seem really stacked against Kenya Airways right now. The odds have also been relatively stacked against Nairobi Stock Exchange compared to East African peers such as Nigeria and Johannesburg so far this year. But Bonnie's favorite stock, Safaricom, has been among the reasons behind the changing fortunes of Africa's largest bourse. What else has helped Nairobi Stock Exchange rally this late, Bonnie?
That's right, Victor. The Nairobi Securities Exchange has been underperforming its sub-Saharan African peers, with Nigeria having ramped up just about a positive 25% since closing a 2-year low in February of 2013. Now, the South African all-share index rallied more than 11% and its all-time high, which is an interesting counterpoint to the recent news flow, especially in Southern Africa. But all-share bounced 0.97 points to close the day at 172.55, Victor. And all-share was lifted up by biggest capitalization stock, which is Safaricom, which closed at a fresh record of just about 1730 and now worth 693.31 billion. We haven't seen this high valuation in the Kenyan Securities Exchange. But as you can see, Victor, the NSE 20 share index rebounded 34.29 points off a December 2014 low of close to 5,061 points. And there was about 26 winners and 12 losers, in which signifies that the market might be finding a footing yet again, Victor. But all this happening at a time where we have a situation at the coast, failing commodity prices, points to a market that is more resilient, Victor.
Thank you, Bonnie Tunya, coming to us from Nairobi, Kenya. Our next stretch sees Christine Mundwa joining us to talk about some of the big business stories in Southern Africa. We're still on Africa Business News, and in our Johannesburg studio, I'm with Christine Mundwa. We celebrated Freedom Day here in South Africa. Our democracy is 21 years old this week. You can say it has now finally come of age. as the nation buried one of its icons from the African Cup of Nations winning squad, John Shoes Moshoeu. Christine is going to tell me how she experienced this week. Christine, xenophobia all over, you can't run away from this topic, but most of all, starting to affect some of the South African-owned businesses in Malawi.
Certainly, one could almost say that the Malawians were among the hardest hit. If you look at the number of people that were repatriated, Malawians make up the bulk of that. And now we're starting to see that Malawians are boycotting South African companies. Those would be Game, your ShopRite, because of how their people have been treated here in South Africa. In fact, interestingly enough, some of them were even upset about the fact that people were ushered back to Malawi with South African buses. So that sentiment is really starting to feel through it. But I must say, we picked up on this, before it actually started to come through. People here telling us that they've been communicating with people back home and really telling them how they've been treated and saying, stay away from South African products. So I think it's going to take a lot of remedying to get that situation under control.
Well, next door not quite next door, but in Zimbabwe, one of the mainstays of the economy of Zimbabwe being tobacco, production not looking so good. What's that about?
Yeah, if you look at since the season opened just last month, already there's a decline of about 18%. It amounts to about $40 million. It all goes about the lower leaves, which were, of course, impacted by the drought as well as the floods that affected the country. And we also understand, this is from local media reports, that buyers had already at the beginning of the season sort of indicated that they were not interested in the lower leaves. But this, unfortunately, was not picked up by the farmers who continue to bring just that to the market.
Once again, as I always say, Zimbabwe always punching below its weight. I wish we could just sort out what's happening, but you can't do much about drought, I guess. Tell me about clover, though, cross-listing or double listing in Namibia.
Yeah, well, certainly. It was a very interesting one. And Clover leadership actually thinks that this will give them greater access to public funds in Namibia. The chief executive came out speaking about grand opportunities for Clover. He's talking about green fields. He's talking about partnering with local farmers. He's even talking about, Clover venturing into the packaging business. So there seems to be a lot of opportunity for the company there. But also the rumor mill has it that they're also eyeing Nigeria, that they're looking at Mozambique as well as Angola.
Well, those are the big markets, Nigeria and Mozambique, of course, much bigger than Namibia. But it's good to see growth of South African companies or South African-based companies into neighboring economies. That's it from Southern Africa. Next up, Christy Cole Popola in Lagos chats to us about West Africa. Christy Cole, Nigeria continuing to raise its hand as Africa's largest economy. Even Fitch believing that Nigerian banks will withstand the fall in commodity prices. To be Africa's biggest economy, one of the crucial indicators will be the cost and time of exports and imports, which has not been Nigeria's strongest point. However, there have been some significant improvements announced by the Ports Authority.
Definitely, Victor. Reducing the cost and time of imports and exports is crucial at this point where Nigeria is desperately looking to diversify economy, is looking to making as much legitimate money as it can from outside the country to shore up its dwindling reserves. But then sadly, recent review by industry watchers have led to the conclusion that a little over 9 years since the handover of the day-to-day running of the ports to concessionaires, the challenges of bothering Nigeria's seaports are yet to be holistically addressed. Basically, they are saying there's been no improvement over the last 9 years.
From the ports and seas of Nigeria, let's go up into the air. I spoke to Boni Tunya about Kenya Airways, which tells you how important air travel is to Africa's economic rebirth. Whereas Kenya Airways is quite large an airline, MedView is not, but they have struck a deal with First Bank of Nigeria. Tell me what that's all about.
From increasing its fleet to announcing plans to operate from Jeddah and Dubai in the coming months, it appears that there is no slowing down for MedView Airlines, which may, until now, not have been referred to as one of Nigeria's foremost airlines. The airline has now taken a step further by signing a partnership agreement with First Bank of Nigeria on the online payment platform it calls the MasterCard Internet Gateway Service, where customers with MasterCards or Visa cards anywhere in the world could make payments for their tickets online. Now, that's a first. In essence, customers will be able to walk into any bank in Nigeria and pay for their reservations made online through this partnership, which has now taken place between First Bank and MedView. The industry definitely needs more partnerships like this to make life easier for customers.
While the star of West Africa's rising oil economy is Ghana, and Tullow Oil is the leading pioneer in the industry, The company recently had to suspend operations at one of their oil projects, something related to a territorial dispute with Ghana's neighbor, Ivory Coast. There's light at the end of the tunnel on this one or not?
Interestingly, this is coming with the fact that Tullow had already completed the drilling required for oil to flow next year before the International Tribunal for the Law of the Seas ruled that no new drilling either by Ghana or under its control could take place in the disputed area. Now, although Cote d'Ivoire had requested the International Tribunal to force Ghana to suspend oil exploration and development in the disputed area, the ruling at present allows the project to move ahead while the company awaits instructions from the Ghana government about implementing the provisional measures of the tribunal. Final judgment on the $4.9 billion project is expected late 2017.
Thank you, Christy Cole out of Lagos, Nigeria. That ushers this week's trivia, and we also get to hear about the favorite stocks of Christy Cole and Bonnie. Stay with Africa Business News. At this point, we asked both Bonnie and Christy Cole what their favorite stock is in their part of the world if I were to invest $10,000 US. Let's start with you, Christy Cole. What's your favorite stock this week?
FBN Holdings, its gross earnings increased 23.5% year-on-year for the 3 months ended March 31st. PAT up by 4.9%, total assets up by 3.9%. Now, on the back of these numbers, FBN Holdings has an annualized return on annual equities of 15%. Now, this results point to a significant improvement in efficiency, which is definitely a key factor for a long-term investor.
All right, how about you, Bonnie Tunya in Nairobi?
Victor, my stock pick for the week this time round is not Safaricom, is not in the banking sector. I will go with Samia Africa. They manufacture tires in the African space. They've had huge competition coming out of the manufacturers in China that are doing it at a much lower cost. But here's a look at thing, Victor. 5 shillings and 70 cents in terms of share price, rising 7.55. This is definitely a counter to look out for.
Our trivia question for this week, one part of it, of course, is a no-brainer for me as a South African, being about April 27th, South African Freedom Day. I remember the day 1994 like it was yesterday, when I, along with other South Africans 18 years and older, went to the polls for the first time ever in a democratic dispensation. But which two other African countries celebrated their Independence Day on April 27th?
I know South Africa was an easy pick for you, Victor, but I'll go with Togo, which is very much closer home.
It's closer to home, of course. And there's another one in West Africa, Sierra Leone. They were partying along hard in the land of Emmanuel Adebayo, that's Togo, to commemorate their independence from France, gained in 1960. Not sure if you could hear the celebration in Togo's capital, Lomé. Christy Cole. Also further west, Sierra Leone, they were partying up a storm in the capital city that says freedom more than any other in the world. I'm talking about Freetown, of course, to remember their independence from Britain in 1961. So, happy birthday to South Africa at 21 years of age, Sierra Leone and Togo at 55 and 56 years of age, respectively. We're back with you next week with more Africa Business News. We thank Christy Cole Popola out of Lagos, Bonnie Tunya in Nairobi, and earlier Christine Mundo here in Johannesburg as well. Stay tuned to CNBC Africa until next week. Au revoir.